There are a few audiobooks that I have in my library from Audible that I revisit every couple of years, maybe some every couple of months, depending on how I'm feeling. But one of them that I definitely visit every couple of years is A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And it's one of those books that is pretty short, and it really just hit home in so many ways and helps me ground back into some beliefs and practices and energy that I like to carry forward in my life. And one of my favorite quotes, you may or may not know it, but I'll just read a little bit of it right now because I love it that much. And it is, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be?" The quote goes on a little bit, but because I know that you want to get to the episode, I will leave it there. It's definitely a book to check out on Audible. Audible is one of the sponsors for my podcast, and I couldn't be more excited about it because I use Audible, and I have used Audible for many, many years. So here's to building your little Audible library and having the books there that you can just pop on whenever you need to have a little reminder of who you really are and how incredible you really are, and how to allow yourself to just be that person. And hopefully you find some of those messages here on this podcast as well. So you can follow the link in my bio in the descriptions for Audible for a free 30-day free trial. And I don't think you'll ever look back from there. It's been a life-changing thing to have an Audible subscription for so many years, and I have an incredible library that I love and cherish. So I hope you find your books as well. And on to the episode. Hi, my name is Greta, and this is my podcast thought experiment called Life. I made this podcast for people who live unconventional lives or maybe want to live an unconventional life. Maybe you're a multi-passionate person, creative. Maybe you just never really feel like you fit in, and I'm all of those things. And although there's not really like a niche to this podcast, I do cover the things that I have some area of knowledge in or experience in, and really things that I just want to pass along that have helped me in my journey as a professional musician, as a martial artist, as someone who's a herbalist and nutritionist. I wear a bunch of hats, and I've also, I've lived with chronic Lyme disease for over 20 years and had to find a way to kind of navigate that so that I could live a full life despite those challenges. And it taught me a lot. Things like that come with anxiety, depression, and all of that. And I had that even before. So, really just a podcast, hopefully a safe and cozy place to be, to try on some different perspectives. And today I just want to talk about frequency. I just, like to do short little thought experiments, basically, where it truly is trying on a different perspective, seeing things from a different angle, and maybe just discovering something about the universe that we live in that makes you go like, oh, interesting. That's sort of how I've always been wired. I tend to use almost everything as some kind of metaphor or analogy to help me understand myself and life differently. So this was, I thought, a really, really interesting fact about resonance and something called sympathetic resonance, where in music and in the universe, right? So like if you have two guitars or two pianos, whatever, if you play a note on one of them, the corresponding note will start to vibrate on the other instrument. And sometimes it has to do with the overtones as well. That's like, I'm not qualified to give that explanation, but essentially the other notes that are corresponding with the note that is being played will start to vibrate. And I thought that was such a cool example of our frequency, our vibration. Everything is energy. We hear that a lot, but that's like a practical demonstration of that, where if we're able to cultivate our energy, our mindset, our intention and attention and put it in a certain kind of frequency, then we can start to vibrate with that matching frequency that we would like to resonate with. And it's something to put into practice in your life. Like if you are attempting to, cultivate your life in a certain way, are you showing up in that way in your life day to day now? Or is it just something that's like a future practice? And I have a really hard time with this whole like, I said it in a recent podcast, or maybe it's one that'll come out after this. But, having the visual presence, like it's harder for me to visualize things. I sometimes can visualize, if that makes sense. Like my hearing sense is stronger in that sense. So if I'm trying to work on attaining like the next step and something that I care about, it might be easier for me to kind of like hear what that might sound like to help me start to step into that frequency and that energy, if that makes sense. Sometimes I have a hard time picturing it in my mind. So I work on that. But I say that mainly because I've known a lot of people who are like, I don't have a good visualization like ability. And then I know some people who can describe everything down to like the tiniest detail. So it's about really finding what works for you in that sense. And then also, practice. So just practicing those things. But thinking about in your life, where are you holding a frequency, holding a vibration? What note are you playing? What note are you playing as you right now? Is it the note that you want to be resonating with? Are you finding that you're attracting the same kinds of things in your life that you don't want to? And it's like, how can you like tune yourself a little bit differently? And I've gone through a couple episodes recently just talking about different ways to shift your energy and shift your perspective. And it's not something to beat ourselves up about. It's just something to notice. Like something I know I really try to bring myself back to as I do this work is like, how am I talking to myself? Like, if I love you and you're my, in my life, like I'm talking to you in that way and making sure I'm doing the same thing for myself. And it's not always true. Like I have to stop and be like, wait, that was like, so I would not talk to somebody else like that. That was so rude what I just said to myself, So like, what note am I playing there? That's not the note that I would pick and choose if I was paying attention. And so it's like paying attention to what note you're playing or notes you're playing, and then making sure you're choosing those, right? And it's a practice. It's all a practice. It's like you come back and you do it again and you get better at it. And the old notes that you were taught, the song that you were taught growing up, you might keep parts of that song and then you might change parts of that song. You might get rid of the whole song and just do a whole new one. So I just wanted to share that as like super short little thought experiment, but it's one that I think is really super interesting when it comes to the actual physical nature of our universe and how it works, and then how that actually aligns with who we are and what we do in the world and what our, intentions are. So check and see what kind of notes you're playing, what kind of songs you're playing with your energy, and see if that's the song that you actually wanted to choose. And maybe you wanted to do something different, and there are so many ways to go about it. Maybe you want to try a bunch of different songs. So just something to think about, and I think it's pretty cool. I hope that you think it's pretty cool too. Stuff like this gets me very excited, which is why I'm sharing it. So I hope there's at least a few other people who also find it interesting. And if not, well, it was only about 6 minutes, so we'll move on to the next topic. Please, if you are finding these podcasts helpful, and if you're finding it something that you enjoy and want more of, I would love for you to subscribe and like and comment and all those things. But would just love you to be a part of this. And if not, it was great to meet you for a moment, and I hope that this finds you well. And I will maybe see you again soon. And for everyone who's returning, I will see you again next week. Where are the heroes?